Welcome to Getting It Done, a podcast about music, education, and life lessons. I'm your host, Tim Rausenberger. Today is Thursday, October 10th, 2019. This is episode 320, Music Education for Schools in the 21st Century. What should be taught? And a happy Thursday to all of my Getting It Doners out there. Great to see all of you here tonight. I would like to say hello in the chat before we get going here to the people who got here early while I was getting everything all set. So hello to Charlize, Jessica, Watermelon Duck, great to see you. Make sure to spread the word, let them know about tonight's episode. I'm sure that a lot of people are very busy at this time of year, especially with the Columbus Day weekend coming up. And I think a lot of people have to finish off their week very, very strong. So I'm sure a lot of my colleagues, students probably have lots of homework and other types of things they need to take care of to wrap up the week. So hopefully they can swing by for a little while and enjoy this episode. This is one very exciting, very, very fun topic for me to discuss for a variety of reasons. As I've said many times, I have been teaching music now. This is my 25th year of teaching in all schools, and I say all schools because I've taught in suburban, rural, and urban communities from pre-K to 12th grade. And over the course of my long career, I've had an opportunity to really think about, assess, and research many different areas in music education, specifically what should be taught, what other people are teaching, are they teaching what is really important in the grand scheme of things. So tonight I'm going to be going through a combination of your thoughts, of course, because without your thoughts, this just can't happen. And so your feedback's going to be critical, and I'm going to throw a question out to you in a minute so you can hopefully help all of us out. So your thoughts can be expressed, and then I'll be able to follow up on what is going through your mind, particularly the students who are here in the chat. And a quick hello to Dan Samilli. Great to see you here as well. So thank you for joining me here tonight. So in addition to the chat, I'm also going to go through a little bit of the history of music education. I did recently, as you know, finish my master's of music education in August. And over the course of the past year and a half, I've done a lot of work. I don't like to just say research. I've done a lot of work in really coming to grips with the things that matter. And I am just finding, it almost seems like daily, I am having an inner struggle with some of the things that I'm even doing with my teaching. I think one of the things that's extremely important when you're going to speak about a topic like this is that you are someone who is in the field, someone who is relevant, has credibility. And too often I have seen people who are presenting research, and they'll give all their different types of thoughts, but the reality is that they're out of touch with what is going on out in the world. Things are constantly, rapidly changing. And as I'm going to go through, they've been changing since the 1960s. It's been going on now for about 60 years, and they're changing quicker than ever. And if you're not keeping up on what's going on in society, it's going to hurt you, and you need to adapt or perish. And that, I think, applies to any type of job. I think that applies to anything that you're going to do in life. You have to adapt or die. I hate to put it that bluntly, but there are so many people out there who are just content all the time with things. We recently did a survey at my school, and it was very, very upsetting. It was very, very disturbing that the students were content with their progress. The way that the question was worded, it had to do with where do you think we're at right now? How much better do you think that we can be? So I was upset and concerned when there were so many students who said, yes, everything is just fine the way that it is. There's really not much that we need to do to get better. And we call that settling. It means that you're content with things are just fine the way they are, and then you don't have anything to work towards. And it's not just in a task in school or some type of homework, but again, it's going to carry over in the way that you conduct yourself on a daily basis. Hopefully, those of you in the chat who mentioned about the music, I think something must have happened with my mic here. So hopefully you're able to hear me a little clearer now and the music a little bit less. Feel free to tune in and let me know. That's a little odd because the volume that I typically have seemed to be okay, but it seems to be picking up picking things up a little bit on the strong side. So thank you, as always, for helping me out. What you're hearing on your end with streaming can sometimes be different than what I'm even hearing with these snazzy headphones on. So my big question for you, as we talk again about episode 320, music education for schools in the 21st century and what should be taught, here is the big question for everyone in the chat. What should be taught? What is important? What matters? What type of music do you feel that a preschooler should be learning? An infant should be learning? Someone who is in, let's say, 5th, 6th grade, 11, 12 years old, what they should be learning in school, all the way up to your high school students. And I welcome your thoughts before I get into my own thoughts. I want to take yours before I express my own opinions. And while I'm waiting for your feedback, I would like to present some information relating to music education and a little bit of a background, a little bit of the backstory. So again, just to remind for people in the chat here, looking for what do you feel is important to be taught in the schools? I should actually say, what music do you feel is important to be taught in the schools? And I'm just going to leave it as music, as a broad topic, and kind of go from there. And I welcome your input while I am giving you a little bit of an education here. Jessica's chimed in, says, I think it varies by the age group. I agree. And I would hope that we can kind of expand on that. Little kids ages 3 to 5 can learn what music is, what instruments look like, sound like, basic songs. So that's a great start. And I'm also going to share what the current line of thinking is by most school districts. I'm not even going to go so much into the standards, and I have my own reasons for why I'm not going to be going into those. Even though I could, I'm going to choose not to tonight. So, without further ado, I want to give you a little bit of a background as to where we are today. That was pretty awful grammar. So, let's take things all the way back to New England. All right, so northeastern United States, because to be perfectly honest, that is where the hotbed of music education has resided for the better part of, well, its entire existence. If we think of Tanglewood, a lot of you have heard of the Tanglewood Music Festival, which is in the New England region, specifically Boston. Tanglewood, it's pretty much right in the center, and New England, of course, it's a region. It's one of those regions that's known for its Ivy League schools. Of course, the sports are king in New England. If you're from Boston, you certainly are. You have your diehard fans, and I mean they are very, very passionate about the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Bruins, the Celtics, and other sports as well. But those four particular teams, extremely passionate fans, to the point that they really, really do not like New York teams and a lot of teams just in general that are not from Boston. Now, in that particular area, there was a gentleman named Lowell Mason. Now, Lowell Mason, he grew up in Massachusetts, and he spent his early adulthood in Georgia. Now, after he decided he was going to move and really take his ideas, he really decided that the best place to go would be Boston when he was about 35 years old. He decided to come up with a new format for how music education was going to be taught. And this was done in terms of music lessons that were done during the school day. His approach, it started to validate music education as just being a credible area of study in public schools across the nation. Now, we fast forward to the 1960s. Now, society was rapidly changing in the 1960s. We had the culture shock of Chuck Berry and Elvis Presley as they paved the way for the evolution of rock and roll. And then, of course, we get the Beatles. Now, you have to understand that parents who were raising their families in the 1950s and the 1960s, they had a specific way as to how their thought process was of how the family was supposed to function, what the role of the mother was, the role of the father, what the children, how the children were supposed to act, what they were supposed to do. And what happened when Chuck Berry and Elvis Presley, when they introduced their music, ultimately the Beatles entering the 60s, you had kids who started to rebel. And they didn't want to listen to music that may have been more in vogue in the 40s and the 50s. So your big band music and listening to the music of Duke Ellington, for instance, just wasn't that important. We had this new type of music. Now, the thing that people don't realize is that in the 1960s, in addition to the music, you had three catalysts that completely changed the way that, well, all Americans would view society And I personally think it's never stopped. I think it started in the 60s and it's continued right up to 2019. You have school reform, civil rights, and technology. Well, let's work backward. So if we talk about technology, what more needs to be said? I have a phone here. This phone is insanely powerful. There are so many things I am able to do with this phone, which is remarkable when you think about society. We all have these phones. Everybody has the capability of getting a phone. Even if you're getting a lousy phone is still infinitely superior to the types of phones you would have had 5 years ago. I mean, short of a flip phone or a phone that has almost no capability of being able to do any type of texting or access to the internet, you can do a lot on this device. Here's the problem. The problem is that most people who have their phones, they don't know how to use them. They don't use the phone to the fullest. What I do when I get my phone, I do a lot of deleting. I delete all the trash that's on the phone, starting with every single game that's on the phone, because the games are awful. And I really don't use my phone to play any types of games of any kind. If I want to play games, I do them elsewhere, but I really don't do them on my phone. But the reason I bring up games is because social media is a game. It really is. And you think about the people that are just wasting their time away on social media, whether it's having to keep up on every single trend that's going on in Twitter, whether it's this need, this constant need to have to know every single thing that happens in a person's life on Facebook. I mean, if you get right down to it, it's gotten to be pretty sad. So technology absolutely has influenced things. I'm bringing this up because it plays a gigantic role in the type of music that I feel should be taught in today's society. It plays a huge role. All of my students at school, if they don't have phones, they have had a phone. Because if they don't own their own phones, they get someone else's phone. They always do. Every single kid. And if their families don't have it, then they take a phone from one of their friends. They're all masters at the iPad. Yet, the ironic thing is, when you ask them to do something that may have to do with Microsoft Word, some of them are clueless. When you ask them to format do the formatting for a paper, basic formatting, zero idea. All information that's easily found on Google. So technology does play a role in music. Civil rights, huge. And we are in a society now where our population has clearly established itself as, I feel this way about things, or I feel this way about things. And I'm not going to bring politics into this, but if you look at the numbers and you look at how people feel about things and what is important and what isn't important to each person, right or wrong, civil rights I personally feel that things are worse than ever. I think people are nastier than ever. I think people gossip more than ever. Why? Well, they certainly have one way of doing it. I think that people now have a voice that they feel this need to use. And worse yet, they can use it right there in the comfort of their own home, not even having to leave the house if they don't want to, and be able to throw stones at people. So civil rights, that's a huge issue. And this is also going to tie into the musical argument. And then we get into school reform. Now, schools have gone through a lot. And the cold, hard reality is, and I don't think you'll ever hear a school district admit this, but it's true for every single school district. They're all predicated on fear. All of them. Every single thing that's going on is predicated on fear, which, if you take fear as an acronym, it's false expectations appearing real. False expectations appearing real. And everyone is terrified of everything. Everyone is terrified of being sued. Everyone is terrified of being video or audio recorded. Everyone is terrified of some type of retribution. And we're terrified of the violence that goes on in schools and the types of things that we as teachers have to do in schools. It has absolutely influenced everything that we've done in terms of education. So these three characteristics from the 1960s, they profoundly influenced the United States. Okay, so what wound up happening when we realized that we recognized that in the 60s, all of these things were going on, and we found these to be true because there were two events that occurred in the 60s. One happened in 1963 and the other in 1967. In 1963, the Yale Seminar was held at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. 4 years later, they had something called the Tanglewood Symposium. That was held in 1967. If you research either of those two items, the Yale Seminar or the Tanglewood Symposium, chances are you will find far more information on the Tanglewood Symposium than the Yale Seminar. And the main reason for that is the Tanglewood Symposium was a group of educators who came together, and they were part of what was known as the Music Educators National Conference, MENC. That organization now is known as NAFME, N-A-F-M-E, the National Association for Music Education. Because of that organization, which is very, very active, and they do make visits to Capitol Hill, and they are advocates. They fight for music education across the entire country. The 1967 Tanglewood Symposium, you're going to find a lot more coverage on that particular item than on any other type of item out there. And this is just the cold hard reality. The Yale Seminar, you're not going to find as much. The crazy thing, though, is that the Yale Seminar, in my opinion, in 1963, has a series of viewpoints, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but there were a whole list of items that they went through of things that were deemed to be extremely important in terms of music education and what should be taught and what was important. The problem was that the people who formed the committee with the Yale Seminar were not exclusively music educators. These were musicians and just music people from all different types of backgrounds. In 1967, the group that came together, and I hate to put it this way, but they from my research, it almost seems like they wanted to take the information that was presented in the Yale Seminar and just go in the opposite direction of a lot of the things that were in the Yale Seminar, which, if you go through that list, a lot of them would work very effectively even today, almost 60 years later. The items in the Tanglewood Symposium, not so much, because what wound up happening there was you had a gigantic group of people who got together and they submitted their thoughts and their ideas and their suggestions, and it was a survey. And then they got a smaller committee, and then a smaller committee, and then ultimately the ultimate decisions that came out of the Tanglewood Symposium were decided by just a handful of people, which is unfortunate because it didn't completely speak to what all of the educators necessarily wanted. So you have to keep this all in mind when we're trying to figure out what music needs to be taught in America. Now, if we go through a few of the items, for instance, from the Yale Seminar, one of the first things is musicality, which is the development of which is the primary aim of music education from preschool or kindergarten through 12th grade. Another thing would be music as literature. Okay, so if you have music that could be like guided listening as a means to understanding, with the monuments of music literature, past and present, and whether they deserve a larger place than it occupies today in elementary and secondary schools. You can consider performing activities. Take, like, for instance, marching band, or if we want to broaden things a little more, perhaps musical theater. Okay, that they are extremely important in terms of vocal and instrumental performance, if you think about theater, and you supplement those with basic musicianship and music theory. So we understand how to make music, musicianship, and then theory, which has to do with the nuts and bolts as to how the music comes together and understanding why it sounds the way that it does. They discussed courses that advanced students could be taking at the high school levels. And then you could go a bit further and bring in musicians from the outside. And the one that I found to be fascinating, which is something that school districts can say this all they want, but teacher training and retraining. And they recognized this in 1963. It's absolutely essential that a curriculum is revised, but it can't just be the curriculum that is revised. It needs to be the teachers who need to be revised. You need to take their brains and say, listen, the things you were doing 20 years ago, you can't do those same exact things. So, unfortunately, as I mentioned, the Yale Seminar, a lot of the music education community, they were not represented at this historical summit. So the Tanglewood Symposium came along, and they came up with their whole entire ideas. And unfortunately, what wound up happening was, instead of having these lists, but they wound up coming up with a declaration. And the sad thing about that is that a declaration reads like a lot of mission statements do in school districts. And you can form your own ideas and thoughts about a lot of the mission statements. Here's what I know about a lot of mission statements. It almost seems like they're worded in such a way that the average person can become very confused when they're trying to read the entire mission statement and not completely grasp what's going on, what is being said, and what the school district wants. And this goes across the boards. So, with all that said, let's now examine, going from the 1960s to present day, what's being taught in the schools now, and do you feel that it's consistent with, especially in relation to the things that I have discussed here in terms of the history? And I know that that took a while to do, but I think it's important that you understand everything that's associated with the history. So let's go through some of the things in the chat now that I've gone through the history. So one of the things that Dance Millie said was rap. There's honestly so much meaning the lyrics have to rap. Okay, good. Jessica says preschoolers should know what a piano is. All right. Watermelon. As students age, I believe you should talk about how music makes you feel, and you should analyze the music. You should get into what kinds of stories music tells, the feelings conveyed by the instrumentals or the lyrics. Jessica, all those TVs in people's houses that brought the Beatles on Ed Sullivan to the kids. I mean, Jessica completely nails it. She's got it right there. And that was, that wasn't a musical event. That was an historical event. Everything in the world stopped when the Beatles landed. When the Beatles landed in America, do the research. When they landed, people lost their minds. And they lost their minds because you have these 4 kids coming over, and they're great looking guys. Every female of any age was completely infatuated with their singing, their looks, the way they talked, the way they walked, everything about them. And then, of course, you had the male reaction, the jealousy, the appreciation for what they were bringing to the forefront. And you had the family reaction. A lot of people who did not like the fact that these 4 guys came over from England and they, for lack of a better word, invaded America. Then they went on the Ed Sullivan Show. I mean, if you pull up the Ed Sullivan Show when the Beatles performed, I don't even know how you're able to hear the Beatles. You just hear screaming the entire time, screaming. The every female there, they were losing their minds. And if you haven't heard that, you have to go onto YouTube and check it out. Incredible. I mean, it was, again, historical event. It's kind of like the Super Bowl now. The Super Bowl is not about football. Super Bowl has not had anything to do with football for years. The Super Bowl is an event for celebrities. It's about the halftime show. It's about how much money we can possibly make. I mean, everything in the world ultimately comes down to money, but the Super Bowl especially, my goodness. I mean, that is hardly about football. So if we take a look at the things, and Julie, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. I understand that you have homework. You can keep me on in the background, though. Of course, you can do that. I know you can. So if I take a look at the things that have been typed in the chat here, if we look at what Jessica mentioned, before we get into little kids learning what music is, we're going to go through some of these other ones. For instance, like a preschooler should know what a piano is. Amen. If you're in preschool, by the time you start kindergarten, you should absolutely know what a piano is, what it looks like, what it sounds like. That I completely agree with. And that has to be a little bit on the parents, too. Is that happening at home? I think a lot of us know the answer to that. As students age, you should talk about how music makes you feel and analyze music. Watermelon, you have definitely hit a very big piece of what I was going to discuss tonight. And I can't tell you how many educators do not do that. They don't allow students to express their thoughts often enough. There's nothing wrong with music making, or as some people even said, musicking. musicing. So the art and the craft of music making, singing, playing instruments, that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that. But do you ever sit back and ask the children how they feel? Because I'll tell you something. I played in my class Cody Lee, who won America's Got Talent this year. And when I played Cody Lee, he plays the first chord on the piano, and it sends things up your spine when you hear that first chord. That harmonic progression in that chord of Donny Hathaway's A Song for You, which actually Donny Hathaway did not originally write it, but he's the one who's credited because he's the one who made the song so insanely popular back in the 70s. But when Cody Lee plays that chord, before he even sings a note, you freeze. And you say to yourself, did he just play the wrong notes? Did he play the notes because he's autistic and because he's blind? Or did he mean to really do that? And and that's what should be going through your mind. That's what probably is going through your mind. That's what you need to ask children. You need to say to them, you say, what as soon as you hear that first chord, what goes through your mind? And they'll tell you. And some people will say, when I hear those notes, I seek these colors. Every single brain has a different way of acting. That's an incredibly important thing. And Watermelon, there's so many people who don't do that. Talk about how music makes you feel. That's what music's all about anyway. When you're presenting a concert, when you're a performer at a concert and people are sitting in the audience, they are not sitting back and saying to themselves, oh boy, I can't wait for measure 57 because I know there is, wait for it, an F sharp coming. Whoa, an F sharp. I know it's coming. Here it's an F sharp. There it is. No, they're not doing that. It's ridiculous. Doesn't make any sense at all. They're looking for musical moments, and they're saying to themselves, is something special going to happen here? Is there going to be something that's going to move me? So something that's going to make me feel special and feel amazing. I'll tell you, I got certain tunes that at any given time I can put them on right now, and I can start get the goosebumps start happening instantly. Goosebumps. And some of you in the chat here probably have some tunes that are just like that, where if you want to move yourself to tears, you know exactly what to put on. And what I say to you then is do it. Do it if you need that. Have that emotional experience. You deserve it. And a lot of people don't always do that. So, yeah, how it makes you feel, how you analyze it. Boy, if you can analyze something, I'll tell you, there was a song I analyzed over the summer. It was by Franz Schubert, and I just have to double check. I don't want to say the title wrong, so just give me 1 second. I'm just doing my own little Googling. Yeah, okay. So the name of the song, hang on a second here. So copy paste action. And I mean, this thing is just, it blew my mind. And I was embarrassed. I even said to my professor, I said, I'm embarrassed that I did not know this song. And I knew, I mean, Franz Schubert was the man. To talk about the musical output of someone like Prince or the Beatles. Franz Schubert, guy only lived to to age 31, and he wrote 800 songs. Are you kidding me? 31 years old. He passed away. He was a ladies' man. That's what he was. It's true. Franz Schubert, Der Doppelgänger. That song, first of all, it is just, it's eerie. It's an eerie song. But there are things going on with the tonality. I mean, this is 200 years ago. Crazy things going on where it's kind of like, you know how you have things that can mean 2 or 3 or 4 different types of things. Well, that's what was going on with this music. When you'd hear the chord, you'd say to yourself, well, it could go this way, or maybe it could go this way. And that was what was going on with Doppelganger. I mean, this guy was so far ahead of his time. So, yeah, everything that Watermelon Duck said is true. And what she mentioned about the tunes. Hey, Watermelon Duck, I got a question. Did you happen to grab either of those tunes for me? I'm just kind of wondering. Those were 2 of my favorites of all time. I was actually listening to Brian Justin Crumb earlier today and his cover of Radiohead's Creep, which is, it's one of the top 5 covers of all time of any song ever written. Ever. Brian Justin Crumb, Creep is ridiculously, it's just bone-chilling, goosebumps, everything up the spine, everything. Vincent by Don McLean is unbelievable. I don't know how he did that. I mean, it is utter brilliance if you do an analysis of Vincent. And then if you have the artwork in front of you, forget about it. So, Jessica, let me tell you something. When you hear the Brian Justin Crumb cover, you're going to love it. You because if you compare it to the Radiohead original, I think the Radiohead original is lousy compared to it. That's just my own personal opinion. So let's see what else we have here before I get into my own thoughts on this particular topic tonight. So appreciate that I'm bringing the truth. That's great. Okay, Sarai. And hello, Sarai. Students should be able to be shown multiple different types of music at a very young age. When I was younger, the only type of music that was taught to me was classical. Okay, excuse me one second. Blech. I mean, really? I'll never get that with teachers. I don't understand it. I just don't get it. I don't understand teachers who feel this incessant need to take classical music and ram it down the throats of anyone. Forget about young kids. I'm talking about anyone of any age. And by the way, you can certainly do plenty of classical without doing stuff from the 1400s. Because I can tell you right now, a lot of the music that's before Bach, it's painful for me to listen to. So the point of teaching it at all, really? Here's where I stand as far as just the content that should be taught. I think for one, it should be relevant. We as music teachers need to treasure and value every second we have with students. One of the things that my students know about me is that I'm extremely passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about my podcasts. I'm passionate when I speak. My words are not wasted. It's just the way that I am. But I'll tell you, when I am going to teach a 40-minute class, you're going to get a full 40 minutes from me. Not 34 minutes and then 6 minutes where we stare at the wall and we're lined up at the door. That's never, ever been my style of teaching. Never. And it's funny because administrations will expect from teachers that you're using every single minute. I've been doing that my entire career. I mean, I use every single minute, but I don't use every single minute because I'm trying to do it to satisfy somebody else and make them happy. I do it because I treasure every single moment I have with my students, and I want to be able to provide the sun, the moon, the stars. I want to be able to give everything I can to them that I have up here and be able to share it with them. And I mean, I've had moments before with some students. I could just sit there for hours and just talk about music and be able to educate and go back and forth and get their thoughts and their emotions, their feelings, and be able to analyze it together. So I think that it's a really, really huge mistake if you, as a teacher or a school district, has designed a curriculum where everything is centered around classical music, because the world is just not all classical music. It just isn't. Now, if you want to take classical music and say, hey, Carl Orff, Carmina Burana. Now, if you don't know this piece, well, guess what? You do know this piece. You may not know the title, because what you know from Carmina Burana is O Fortuna. So check that out when the podcast is over. YouTube that. You have heard that. It's one of the most played soundtracks. It's not a soundtrack, but it's one of those pieces that's been used so many times in the backgrounds of movies and the trailers for the movies, for commercials, for things, the intros and outros for sitcoms. Forget about it. And Carl Orff, by the way, all those little instruments, of course, are known as the Orff instruments. Those little xylophones, the little ones with the bars. Those are Orff instruments. Carl Orff was a preeminent music educator. He was the consummate musician. But his Carmina Burana, which is O Fortuna, is one of, I think it's 27 movements, I believe. Yes, 27 movements. And I was privileged enough to be able to sing that several times with the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. And it's such a wonderful, wonderful piece. There's so many parts of Carmina Burana that could be used in different types of ways, but it was certainly never written to be used in the background for the end of the world is coming, which is how a lot of people view it today. Has it been in a video game? Yeah, it's certainly been in a video game. So we look at classical music, and I think that there are too many people who view that to be too important in the grand scheme of things. Now, if we break down music education starting from preschool all the way up to 12th grade, I can make this super, super simple. Very, very simple. Let's just talk about the content that is being taught in general music classes. That means we're not dealing with band, and we're also not dealing with chorus. We're just talking about the music classes that in a lot of school districts, little kids take from kindergarten to perhaps 5th grade, maybe 6th grade in a school district. And then you'll have some school districts that in the middle school to have some type of music appreciation class in 7th and 8th grade. And then you might even have a music appreciation humanities requirement of sorts at the high school level. So let's just deal only with that type of course. Now, me personally, I love teaching those classes. And one of the reasons I love it is because the people that I have in my classroom are not there on a volunteer basis. They are forced to be there. And I find that challenging. Are there times where you have some kids that are can be very, very difficult? Absolutely. But I love the challenge of being able to work with students of all different ages and be able to bring them in and have them buy what I'm selling to them in the room. Now, especially with younger children, I would say from grades kindergarten, first, second, third, and even going into fourth, there needs to be a lot of singing in class. I do believe that all children, by the time they are out of elementary school, they should have a concept of how to sing, what a singing voice is like. I do not think there's any harm in educating them at that point. I think it's the job of the teacher to educate them on taking care of their voices. Everyone in the world has a voice, speaking and singing. That is an integral part of something that should be taught by a music teacher. Who else is going to teach it? No one. It's not in the curriculum anywhere. So teaching basic vocal survival, vocal care, I think is paramount for all music students. And it can be done in the general music classroom. And yes, it can be done with a kindergartner. They are not too young to learn. As a matter of fact, they're going to remember it probably a lot better than the middle schooler or the high schooler who has something else that's on their mind, and they're not even listening at all. So where do I teach? I teach in Union City, New Jersey. So hello, Mike. It's good to see you here. But I teach in Union City, New Jersey. And but I've been teaching throughout the state of New Jersey for like I said, I'm in my 25th year now. And after all these years, that hasn't changed. Children need to be singing. They need to understand what their singing voice is like. They need to be told, no different than the type of expectation that people put on children when it comes to language arts, people put on to children when it comes to math, social studies, science, so on and so forth. All of these different types of areas, I think that we need to make sure that it's addressed in the music classroom. Okay, so we know that the students need to be singing more. Now, what should they be singing? Well, I think the younger children should definitely be singing, for lack of a better word, I'll just use nursery rhymes. You're This Old Man, Itsy Bitsy Spider. One of the songs that I also teach right now, which is a big hit, is The Ants Go Marching, which is really, really cool because it's in 6/8. And so that's kind of neat. And it's something that with the older kids, you can even explore what that time signature is. Old MacDonald, Thank You, Watermelon Duck. That's certainly one that I was just doing today. And as a matter of fact, I had one particular class. They requested it 3 times. And it was awesome. And it was a lot of fun. But these nursery rhymes they're fun and they're easy. Now, what else is important, though? How about American songs? Do you realize how many children do not know any songs that are from this country? How? Why is it that if you take a song like Baby Shark, which is, look, I mean, we can laugh about it and everything. It's an idiotic song. I mean, it's a silly song. It's catchy, but why is something like Baby Shark or the other one that my kids absolutely love, and I do play it. I'm not going to, guilty as charged, because they love it, and we come up with dances and we do things to work on rhythm, steady beat. and I'll use that as a reward. But the Gummy Bear song, check that one out if you don't know the Gummy Bear song. And if you want to have a lot of fun, check out the Gummy Bear song in Spanish. It is a lot of fun. Jessica, you're doing just fine if you don't know Baby Shark. So, but you look at people like, for instance, Watermelon Duck is mentioning Yankee Doodle. Kids, you're lucky if they even know how the tune goes. Forget about the lyrics. No chance. Star Spangled Banner. I can't tell you how many times I played the Star Spangled Banner in class. I'll play it, and then I'll have kids work in groups of 4 and say, write out all the lyrics. And they'll get about 20% of the lyrics correct. And that's not an exaggeration. The rest of them, they'll just butcher the lyrics completely. How about this? Here's something to think about. And I said this to some of my students. I have some bilingual students. And tell me right now, and this is not something that I'm singing. This is something I'm speaking. I want you to figure out what it is that I'm speaking right now. I'm not going to make any sense. And this is just to show you where we're at as a society and why we need to rethink things in terms of music education. Okay? This is American. What did I just say? Everything that I said just made 0 sense right away. And it's almost, I hate to say it this way, it's almost cult-like that people will say the Pledge of Allegiance, but I don't think they even know what they're saying. They're just saying these words, but I don't think they understand the words whatsoever. And I look at my poor kids who English may not be their first language. And I actually said to them, we did the Pledge of Allegiance. I was in their class. And I said to them, I said, do you know what these words mean? And most of them said, no, they have no idea. So I said, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll teach it to you in Spanish. And then we'll discuss the words, do it to the best of my ability, so then you can understand how it is in Spanish and English, and even maybe we can even figure out a way that we can say it in Spanish. But it's the same thing for the Star Spangled Banner. America the Beautiful, which I personally feel should be our Star Spangled Banner. I think our national anthem should be America the Beautiful. And then, of course, there's the song America. Well, most people call America My Country 'Tis of Thee. Well, the name of the song is America. The name of my song is not My Country 'Tis of Thee. Those just happen to be the first few words. Now, the reason why a lot of people will say My Country 'Tis of Thee, the reason they say My Country 'Tis of Thee is because they don't know what the real title of the song is. They don't know that it's actually America. Do you know the words? You know the tune, do you know the words? And then if you know the words, do you even know what the words mean? So you may not know those words very, very well. But when Billie Eilish comes out with a new song, you're able to instantly memorize the lyrics. And I think Billie Eilish is an excellent artist. But that's my point. My point is that I just gave you an excellent artist, and you're so quick to get the lyrics of those songs, but you don't know the words to basic patriotic music as a resident of the United States. Wait a minute. What is this? Now, see now, Watermelon Duck, see, now you're guilty, okay? Who's Billie Eilish? See, now, if you didn't know and you're asking me that question, then you wouldn't have spelled it correctly. So I can tell you right now, I'm very, very curious. MCR. I do not know MCR. Who's MCR? I have no idea. You know what she looks like. Jessica, I'll tell you, very, very fine artist. She's very, very good. Her songs are very deep and they're very meaningful. Should that be taught in class? I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't see anything wrong with the song if it's appropriate. We did the song All of Me last year by John Legend. Yes, my kids got sick and tired of singing it after a while. It's a fantastic song. It's a wonderful song. It has a positive meaning. There were lots of things we were able to do harmonically, musically with it. So what's wrong with that song that we have people, choral directors, who then feel this need that they must do these songs that may not be as appealing, I think is probably a good way of putting it. And there are going to be people who listen to this podcast and they're going to say that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about and he's being sacrilegious. No, I'm not. I'm not at all. I don't have anything wrong with the Randall Thompson Alleluia. Nothing. The Randall Thompson Alleluia. I'm typing it in the chat. It's that wonderful of a piece. But here's all you need to know about the Randall Thompson Alleluia, which I believe was actually written for the Tanglewood Symposium. I'm pretty sure. I think it was, the Tanglewood Music Festival. I think it was 1954. I'm pretty sure was the year. And Randall Thompson wrote this glorious a cappella piece for soprano, alto, tenor, bass, chorus, the Alleluia. Here's all you need to know about this piece. It's beautiful. Only one word is said. The entire 4-minute piece, Alleluia, the entire time. I had a family member who attended a concert recently. I don't know why they were at the concert, but they were reading off. They asked me about the different songs in the program. And this particular piece came up. This was recent. And they said, I hated this piece. Hated it. Couldn't stand it. I was falling asleep listening to this piece. And I can see that as an average concert goer. I could see someone falling, just out, listening to the Randall Thompson Alleluia. Now, it is beautiful. It's gorgeous. But at the same time, you need to be well rested to listen to this. And if you just put in a 10-hour day of work and you're sitting back at a 7:30 concert, that thing will put you to sleep. If you showed up at the concert to listen to some upbeat music, upbeat it is not. It's not a sad piece, but it's a powerful piece of music. And it's really something to think about. And that's one of the classics, as opposed to some of this complete schlock, some of this garbage that some choruses are singing. My platform has always been in terms of American music being taught in schools. Here's why I think American music is so important. If you go through the textbooks, the musical textbooks, most of the ones that are out there for grades kindergarten through 6, a lot of those textbooks will go through these folk songs and tunes from different countries or different continents. And I have nothing wrong with that. I don't have anything wrong with multiculturalism. That's completely and totally fine. You want multiculturalism? I'll give you multiculturalism. Here's some multiculturalism for you. You're not going to get more multicultural than this. I want to make sure I'm spelling it right. Afrika Bambaataa, one of the first hip-hop artists, and he's still alive. And it's an awesome story. It's a great story to say to the kids and explain who he was, that he was from the Bronx, and he had this incredible opportunity to go to Africa. Just a random American teenager, troubled youth, who turned his life around, did something good with it, had an opportunity to go to Africa, learn about all these different rhythms, brought the ideas and the concepts back to America. And it's some of the early, the beginnings of hip hop and rap, and a way to be able to express yourself and a way to be able to dance. I mean, incredible. What's not multicultural about that? So if we're going to be teaching music from other countries, I think that that's great. But my goodness, can we make sure that we're covering the music of America? I don't get it. And let's go one step further with that. So we've talked about the general music and the fact that singing should be happening in the classroom. That absolutely should be happening. We should be listening to more music and talking about how students feel when they listen to the music. And when you're looking at music that has to do with the senses, or if you ever look at that meditation music, some type of relaxation music, where you might see an aquarium filled with fish, and you hear this beautiful music, this gentle music in the background. How does that music make you feel? What is in that music? What's the secret sauce that is making it sound that way? And have the discussion and talk about the instruments. That's the way that you get the kids engaged. And then if you want to recreate it, go for it. And if you want to have them create it and use programs like GarageBand and be able to come up with those different sound effects, then go for it. Absolutely. There's so many different directions you can go. But when we're just focusing on all of our music, sticking only to a textbook and playing only these instruments, and it's just rinse, repeat every single year, I think there's something that's fundamentally wrong with that. I just do. And they figured that out in the 1960s. Why has nobody figured that out by now? All these years later, why? What excuse? Because you have to satisfy some type of standards. All of the standards that are in your particular state or the federal standards can absolutely be more than satisfied by doing any of these things. As a matter of fact, you can probably do an even better job than the stuff that's in those books to begin with. Facts. All right, now we go into bands. You know what makes me sick? This makes me sick to my stomach. The number of students who have no clue who this person is. John Philip Sousa. Who in the chat here knows who John Philip Sousa was? I shall grab a quick swig here while I'm waiting for you to answer. Hello, Dante. Who's John Philip Sousa? Dates, I believe, 1854 to 1932. John Philip Sousa is the king, the father of the American March. When you're listening to fireworks on the 4th of July, or fireworks at almost any place, and they're playing music in the background, da da dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum bum ba-dum bum ba-da-dum bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum bum. Or if we take da 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 dum, those are the two different spots of that song. That's Stars and Stripes Forever. Well, who do you think wrote it? That would be John Philip Sousa. And it's not made to make you feel stupid, but it means that you should have learned this from someone, from a music teacher. Stars and Stripes Forever is the official march of the United States. George W. Bush made it the official march of the United States. That is the march. And by the way, it's not easy to play. It's actually a difficult march to play for a lot of instruments, especially it has one of the most demanding piccolo solos ever written. People think, oh, it's great. I can't wait to hear the piccolo. The piccolo players are always sweating bullets when they have to go to play that piece. It's brutal to play, but it's fun to listen to that piccolo play it. I'll tell you that much. My goodness. I mean, John Philip Sousa, absolutely, totally incredible. Absolutely amazing. Rip Janet. I'm not sure what Rip Janet is, but I learned about John Philip Sousa from back in 1998, and I'm glad. I'm glad that I was able to provide that type of insight to you. But we look at a lot of people here who are saying, I think I've heard the name before. Yeah, this guy was a really, really big deal. And somehow or another, you think about all those music classes that you sat through in your life. What do you remember? What memories do you have of those classes? Or were the memories, I wish that it would just end, and I wish this class was over, and I'm bored out of my mind? And that is obviously another huge problem, and that can be another topic for another day. But I can tell you that aside from the fact that the teacher may not be the best in terms of being dynamic and may not know their area very, very well, or may just be downright incompetent, you have so many people who I think they're just teaching the wrong materials, or they're teaching the materials in the wrong ways, or they're focusing on the wrong things. I think it's so critically important that teachers are tying in relevant things from society to the music. If you're a music teacher listening to this, ask your kids what they listen to. Find out. I know who BTS is. It doesn't mean that I love the group, but I know who BTS is. I now know who Billie Eilish is. Doesn't mean I listen to Billie Eilish every single day. I know who these artists are. And I think there are a lot of people, they just have these blinders on. It's just so incredibly ignorant. And I'm going to throw one more thing out there, and you can do with it what you want. Because if you've listened this far into the podcast, then you're going to certainly listen to this. Is there something that we can do as a society for all the English language arts teachers out there and the school districts where students must take English for 4 years? That is a requirement in the United States. How in heaven's name do we have students who are graduating high school and they are completely incapable of writing their own resumes, cover letters, preparation for job interviews in terms of writing, just crafting their own signatures? What are we doing as a society? Because I don't have anything wrong with Shakespeare. I think Shakespeare is awesome. But you know what? When you think about all of the different works of Shakespeare, maybe, just maybe, we could forego one of those works, just one of them, for one marking period, and maybe focus on some of those things that our children desperately, desperately need. Because I met recently with some outstanding superstar students with high grade point averages, people that I'm mentoring right now, and they haven't the slightest clue how to craft a letter for things that are going to be extremely important in life. Because all of that writing that they did about Macbeth is not going to do a darn thing when they are trying to net a job. And that's a fact. Total fact. A big thing to think about. And this is what I'm talking about in terms of people who are focusing on the wrong things in music education and not thinking about the big picture. So with that said, I greatly appreciate all the people who chimed in tonight and came up with these outstanding suggestions. Hello to Mary. I know I said hello to all these other people. Dante, thank you for chiming in tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you to Watermelon Duck, Dance Millie, who have been here the entire time. I know Sarah's been here for quite some time, as well as Charlize and Jessica, of course. I see that there was a Mike that came along, and Alexa, thank you for joining tonight. It's just so wonderful to see so many of you curious and just wanting to learn more. Hopefully you had a chance to bang that like button. I appreciate it. I think that that would be really, really helpful to me. If you can bang that thumbs up button, that would be great. And as always, if you can pass the episode along to people who didn't have a chance to enjoy it tonight, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. We are at the point in this fine podcast where we're about ready to award a $15 Amazon gift card. I am going through the entire chat right now. I am now copying and pasting this entire chat, throwing it into my little generator here. Just give me 1 second. Oh, there it comes. Here it comes. We're back to this nonsense again. We're back to it again, whatever this duck is up to here with this SK nonsense. You know what I'm going to do? I heard what I'm going to do. In protest, I'm going to type the word ska. Here, check out that type of music. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. We'll go one step further. Okay. Check out the Mighty Mighty Bosstones. Great, great tune. Excellent. Great tune. Excuse me. Excellent group. And you can even check out this tune, The Impression That I Get. Awesome, awesome tune. So Mighty Mighty Bosstones, terrific band, old band, but good tune and excellent group. So here we go. Okay, get some drum rolls going. We have to get some people here involved, and we're going to figure out. Let's see. Okay, looks like we finally have found someone who is going to be receiving this $15 Amazon gift card. What would you do? What would you do with an Amazon gift card, by the way? What would you do with an Amazon gift card? I never get to ask people that. You know, they get the Amazon gift cards. I'm not giving away any gift card right now. If you got that $15 Amazon gift card, I want to know what you would do with it. What would you do with that $15 Amazon gift card? I must know. You would buy a book. Me, I'd probably buy another water bottle. I got to confess, I love these water bottles, and you can't find them anywhere but Amazon. So, books, art supplies, all right? Get my beet powder. I get my green powder from Amazon. They totally hooked me up. Take care of a guy, that's for sure. Even the hair gel. Going on too. I got that off of Amazon as well. Buy books and paints and canvases. I didn't know that. Duck is into the painting and canvas. I didn't know that about you. That's actually pretty awesome. I did know about Dance Millie. I didn't know she was into the art supply type of thing. And I definitely know that Jessica is a reader. She is a book person. So, wow, we got a lot of book reader people here. Okay, here we go. Drum roll, please. Here it comes. Julie Gomez, congratulations on the $15 Amazon gift card. I know that you were here for just a brief time because you had a lot of homework, but I certainly appreciate you for coming out tonight. It's so great to have you as part of the Getting It Done family. So congratulations to Julie Gomez. Again, as always, the way to contact me is, of course, gettingitdonepodcast@gmail.com. That is our official email address at any given time. You know that you can always check us out. Please, if you have not checked out the website and you haven't looked at the other episodes, gettingitdone.us. And if you haven't had a chance to check out I don't talk about this too much, but definitely go back and listen to some of the audio podcasts episodes that I did. I started those in 2017. There's some real gems in there. Some ones that I did that I'm very, very, very proud of. Some of them are as short as 4 or 5 minutes. Other are as long as an hour. They really range in length, but there's so much that you can get out of those. And while some of my viewpoints have changed on certain topics, a lot of them remain the same. And if you have the ability to access iTunes, then go for it. If you have an Android device and you can't get into iTunes, but you can open up a SoundCloud account, which is free. Open up your SoundCloud account, check out any of those 250 episodes. They're all free. And being able to give me some nice ratings on those two would be just awesome. Thank you so much for all of you for tuning in tonight. Next Thursday, we'll be back. Same bat time, same bat channel. You know how we do it here. Getting It Done, 7 o'clock, Thursday nights. What was I going to say? Oh, that's right. Peace.